All right, so today I decided to go back into the office, not because I wanted to, but because at my current company, if you're going to be out of the office for more than 3 days, you have to bring a doctor's note. And we all know that going to the doctors, even if you have medical insurance, isn't a one visit thing. It's a copay, it's blood work, it's follow up, it's prescriptions, and time. So going to the doctor for the average person isn't humanly possible anymore unless you're really, really sick, which I would consider myself to be in the sick, possibly real sick column, but you just have to make it. As poor people, the option to see a doctor is just not feasible. There's too much out of pocket cost. So instead of going and getting treated, I'm sitting here hoping that I'll just be murked by disease. But with that said, let's get into our opening monologue. You ever notice how every jump feels like you're stuck in the same broken video game? You spawn in, push buttons for 8 hours, collect just enough coins to not bite it, and then boom, back to the starting screen tomorrow. Capitalism keeps calling this career growth, but reality, it's just minimum wage Mario. The pipes lead nowhere, and the princess is in another paycheck. Wow, that's pretty dark. But I love the Mario reference. I don't know where it got that from. Probably from me mentioning that Luigi should be our mascot for the revolution. But that's all I can think about because I'm not certain that I mentioned anything having to do with video games. This is ChatGPT's world. We just live in it. So, with that said, let's get into talking point number one. We were promised careers that look like gourmet meals, pensions, promotions, stability, but when you unwrap them, it's just a soggy crunch wrap in a paper bag, rushed, sloppy, falling apart before you even take a bite. The only difference between your office job and working the drive-through at Taco Bell is Taco Bell doesn't pretend you'll be vice president of chalupas one day. That's true. When I worked at Walmart, every single day they pushed the narrative that anyone can become the CEO of Walmart. Once you work at the Death Star, if you're working at an Amazon warehouse, you know that if you make it to the end of the shift without being sucked through a 6-inch pipe, and I'm only going to keep using that example because it's true, someone in that uniform had to have their life come to a bitter end by being sucked into I imagining a sorting machine of some sort, and they came out the other side looking like Play-Doh. Not exactly something that I'd want to be a part of anyway. I would never want to see that, hear that, or be the guy going through the pipe. But these things happen. And in so many places where bad things happen to the workers, where there's so many accidents, that's the hardest part about being a pro is that you're more than likely going to end up getting severely injured at work. And that goes for every single person that does delivery work, being attacked by dogs, being overwhelmed by the heat because the work is outside, or the fact that you feel like a pack mule carrying around the mail in your little outfit that makes you look like a child. And that's one thing that I've never liked about low level jobs is the uniform. Whether you're wearing a polo, you're wearing a goofy hat, or you're wearing khaki pants at a job that doesn't pay you enough to afford khaki pants, it's all very unnerving. And the constant propaganda that this is good and that you should be grateful for this job just really begins to jar you. And it also reminds me of that story of that Burger King manager who met a girl who was still in high school and ended up marrying her and leaving his wife. So there are some winners out there. The occasional middle aged man winner. But for the most part, if you're 30 and you're working fast food or you're working any job that doesn't pay you a living wage or that makes you feel like a child, a job in which they have internal money, right? They have their own like reward system. Like when I first started working my current job, Every once in a while, I would find a like a reward card that said, "Oh, because of your excellent work, you've earned yourself an extra 15-minute break." And and I thought, isn't this what you give a child? Either you're going to give a child in kindergarten two things. You're either going to get a gold star or you're going to get the anti-gold star, and that means you've got to go sit in time out because of what you did. I feel like corporate America needs more time out. And that, and for me, when I worked at Kroger's, my timeouts were poor work performance, pushing shopping carts, so you get suspended for 1 day so you can think about it. Imagine that, punishing a middle aged man with time out because they don't think that you look motivated and hungry enough at work. In fact, when I worked at Insight, my old boss would say that to me all the time. It's like, Millennial Steam, you don't seem very aggressive at this job. And I'm like, give me a clown at this corporation that will show up to work with any ambition in their heart, and I will tell you it is phony as a $3 bill. Talking point number two. Forget training manuals. The only lessons your job teaches you is fear. Fear of layoffs, fear of HR emails, fear of being replaced by a teenager with fewer bills or an AI with no rent to pay. Management calls it motivation, but it really just seasoning the burrito with anxiety keeps you biting even though it tastes like burnout. In fact, today I was having a conversation with a coworker and I said, "Isn't fear a lovely thing? You can keep coming back to work, and the only reason you come back to work is because you fear not having food. You fear not being able to pay your rent, and you fear having your stuff taken away. Fear is the fuel that feeds this job economy. Because if there's such a term as job huggers in this world. Job huggers is a thing where there are people who are so afraid of being laid off that they're hugging a job that's as toxic to them is as radioactive waste. You imagine you're holding on to your radioactive waste job because you're so afraid of losing it. Fear is the constant factor that makes corporate America the way that it is. As long as all of your workers are constantly living in a sense of, what do you call it? In a world in which they don't have any stability of any kind, and all they can hold on to is toxic positivity mixed in with fear, depression, anxiety, and panic attacks. When I wake up at night, all I fear is having to walk the streets because your job got replaced by AI. In fact, today at McDonald's, one of my coworkers like, all we're doing is training the AI to do our job better. And you can't argue with that. I mean, AI is an incredible tool, and it is something that if you don't know how to use it right now, that you're falling behind. And that's something that comes up every day. As some people become more skilled and they learn how to use technology, other people don't even want to learn how to use a cell phone. And that's another thing that comes up almost on a regular basis at Surf City. There are people that are so old, and I was actually telling one of my friends this. I'm actually talking to her right now about how there are people who are so paranoid that they do not want a single piece of software on a personal device that they use. In fact, she said this to me a couple of days ago. If they want me to have this software on a cell phone, why don't they provide it? And there's one reason for that. They know you're not going to be there long, and they don't trust their workers with anything. The less you have to trust people with anything of value, the more it shows that they don't value. When I worked at Walmart, we had these scanners that you would scan the merchandise with, and you would go through an aisle and you would scan what's on the shelf, and that they would tell us about how expensive these devices were all the time. But as a sabotaging mechanism, because this is what slaves do, they slow down, they break things, they lose things. They make it so that they can be as least efficient on the plantation as humanly possible. So every year, nearly every single device scanner was either broken or was lost. Lost means just thrown away, occasionally picked up by a customer because people would just leave them laying around. Every once in a while, you'd be working in an aisle and you look up and there's a scanner sitting on a shelf that someone just left because they didn't care. It's hard to make people who don't feel like work treats them like a human being care about work. And the only way that you can show that is by being a saboteur at your minimum wage job. Like yesterday, I went to Sonic for breakfast, and there was just one guy sitting inside that restaurant. And I didn't realize that Sonic is a 24/7 restaurant, but it doesn't have any sort of indoor dining area. And that's on purpose, right? You don't want to attract the wrong crowd to a place that's open 24/7. The last thing that you want is having the homeless people using your business as a homeless shelter. That's the whole reason why they closed the 24-hour gym by my house and why they got rid of the seating area inside of the 24-hour grocery store that now closes at 10 o'clock. I made an entire video about this. But we can't have 24-hour spaces. So the Sonic is 24 hours. And there was this guy sitting inside there, and he looked like, I swear, he's probably around 25, big old mustache, smile from ear to ear. And I gave him my order, and he was sitting there making my order. And all I ordered was a breakfast burrito, and he hands me a giant Coke, and it's like, oh, look, here's your Coke that goes with your burrito. And I'm like, I didn't order a Coke. And I looked at my receipt, and there was no Coke. But I imagine he's just sitting there all night by himself with no one coming through the drive-through because people don't have money for overpriced fast food. More and more people are cooking at home because if you're going to have a bad experience with food, you might as well make it yourself and not wonder what the special ingredient is. But the point of this is he was just sitting in there, doing nothing, watching his life pass him by while he was probably doom scrolling on his phone and wondering how much longer he could do this. That's how I feel about every single job in America. How long can I keep myself doing this at this pace? And every conversation that I had today with my fellow friolators, expert friolators at McDonald's was the same thing. How long can I do this? In fact, one of the girls that I was talking to, the same one that I'm talking to, sent me a picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the caption was, I give up. And why? Because she was frustrated as hell with the people that are supposed to be helping people. And she doesn't understand why the customer service just isn't there. You know what she said to me a few minutes ago? They need to hire more people. And I told her flat out, do more with less. Do more with the potatoes that you have before you turn them into French fries. And that's the model of every single corporation. You've got fresh potatoes, but they're burning and they're burning and they're burning every day, every minute, every second. You're turning them from fresh to to fried potatoes, to dunked in hot grease until they can't move anymore, until you break them. And I was talking to another one of my coworkers who said, you know what? Yesterday was a mental health day for me because he woke up. He didn't want to go so badly that his body's reaction to going to work was throwing up. That's how his body reacted to going to another work of extremely intense, stressful work at Evil Corp. People are breaking in real time. And he even said this to me today. It's like, I don't know how long that they expect the potatoes to keep going. Eventually, one of them's going to break. And I nodded my head at him, and I'm like, that's it. That's the point. You got to break the potatoes. All right, let's move on to talking point number 3. You're not the crunchy wrap. You're the wrapper. Used, tossed, replaced. Corporations keep selling us careers like they're 5-star meals. But the truth is, we're all just the dollar menu employees in a drive-through economy. The system doesn't want loyalty, it wants turnover, because every time one of us falls apart, there's another poor soul still hungry enough to take that job. This is exactly the way that I feel about jobs with 5 to 10 years of experience required, certifications, advanced degrees. But that experience is king. In fact, I was just talking to Blue about her significant other who happens to work in the tech field, who has certifications, years of experience, lost his job last week and has been looking for work. And she told me she understands why it's so hard because they don't value workers anymore. If you're in an industry like fast food, they don't value you at all. All you are is a resource to be resourced out. I love job descriptions that refer to you. The resource will empty the fry later, cook hamburgers, work the register, clean the floors, and provide world class customer service while wearing a clown suit and a name badge and having stains all over your shirt from working the fry later. It paints a really, really ugly picture of the worker in America who's already so strapped for cash that they don't know what to do. I walked through two different Walmarts this afternoon because I went to one and they didn't have what I wanted. And then I went to another one and the same thing. It was like the exact same people, the exact same crowd of people, the same demographic, the same group of people in one Walmart are the exact same people you find in another Walmart. Like I went to the one right outside of Guadalupe and then I came and went to the one that's closer to downtown Tempe. And even though these places are worlds apart from one another, it's the exact same look on the employee that says, help me. I can't feed myself on this job. I don't have a car and I have no future. You walk across the parking lot and you look at the people working at the Arby's, the Taco Bell, the McDonald's, the Firehouse Subs, and the Starbucks, all within walking distance of one another, and you find the exact same people. People who have given up on the jobs that they can get. People who don't see the value of being able to continue going to work. There's a lot of people in our society who can't afford to work. And every person you see wearing a uniform right now is one of those people who can't afford to work. But they don't have a choice. Just because you don't want to do that job doesn't mean you don't have to do it. But it also doesn't mean that they have to treat you like absolute garbage. If we're all dollar menu employees, what does that mean about a system that employs dollar menu employees? Because, as I said in one of my other videos, either the system is wrong or you're wrong. Either the money that they're paying us is broken in a way, or we ourselves have so little value as dollar menu employees that we're the problem. There's too many of us and not enough people to create a social movement to change things so that we're treated as real human beings that deserve leisure, savings accounts, and the ability to say, you know what, I'm not my job. Just because I work here doesn't label me as a pathetic loser of an economy that doesn't see me as a person. All right, let's get into our closing monologue here. So, yeah, maybe the truth is that none of these jobs are meant to last. Not your career, not your paycheck, not even your sanity. The system wants us running in circles, grateful for scraps, and too tired to fight back. But here's the irony. Once you stop pretending there's a ladder to climb, you finally see the cage you've been in the whole time. And that's when the real question hits you. Do you keep clocking in or do you finally flip the register and walk out? I've seen so many people walk out from minimum wage jobs where they didn't have to do it. When you have people to take care of you, when you have someone that's willing to let you live in their house like your parents and willing to let you figure it out, let you not participate. Like the biggest, what would I say? The biggest complaint of people out there, of employers, is that there isn't enough people to exploit because they want to make certain that they can exploit Every single person. And when you choose not to participate in their system, it pisses them off. It's those business owners that come onto Fox News and say nobody wants to work anymore while simultaneously getting into their expensive sports car and driving to their part of the city where you would never be allowed. They expect you to sacrifice everything, your life, your happiness, every part of your life. Remember the expression I like saying, you will own nothing and be happy. You will smile at a job that pays you nothing while they question whether or not your loyalty is sufficient enough. Because remember, that big smile of yours is part of the uniform. And if you're not smiling, then what you're saying to them is you're not grateful to have this crummy job. They don't want you there if you're not grateful to make nothing and to live a life that's not worth living.